I don't care who you claim to be. Get out of this lounge now. The harsh command shatters the peaceful morning at LGA International Airport's exclusive VIP lounge. Several heads turn, witnessing a scene that would soon shake an entire airline to its core. No one could have predicted how this morning would transform from a routine first-class flight into a watershed moment for the aviation industry. Especially not Sabrina Wood, who stood there, authority radiating from her airline uniform, about to make a decision that would end life as she knew it. "Ma'am, this is your final warning," Sabrina declares, ignoring the fact that the reception desk had already verified Lisa Morgan's credentials, twice. The tension builds as other passengers exchange uncomfortable glances, sensing the prejudice beneath the surface. But in the next 30 minutes, everything would change. The power dynamic would flip so dramatically that this story would be shared millions of times across social media. At the boarding gate, Sabrina's actions escalate beyond mere words. The sound of tearing paper fills the air as she shreds the first-class ticket, punctuating her actions with the fatal words, "People like you don't belong in first class." Lisa Morgan rises slowly, a mysterious smile playing on her lips. Her next words would become legendary across the internet. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your life." The gathered crowd, phones recording, had no idea they were about to witness one of the most spectacular reversals of fortune in aviation history. If you're watching this right now, you're about to witness how one flight attendant's prejudiced actions led to the most dramatic workplace transformation in aviation history. Before we continue this incredible story, take a moment to join our Tales of Light family. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss our upcoming revelations of justice served. Tell us where you are watching from, and what you would do if someone publicly humiliated your loved one, because the response to this situation will leave you speechless. What the recording phones didn't capture was the quiet buzz of text messages already racing through the airline's corporate hierarchy. In a luxurious Chicago boardroom, a powerful CEO's phone would soon light up with footage of this confrontation. But Sabrina didn't know that yet. She stood there, satisfaction written across her face, watching the torn pieces of the first-class ticket scatter across the floor. She had no idea that the elegant woman standing before her had helped build this airline from the ground up. In the next few minutes, she would learn a lesson about power, prejudice, and consequences that would reshape not just her career, but the entire airline industry. Because Lisa Morgan wasn't just any first-class passenger, and her husband's response to this incident would send shockwaves through every major airline in America. Earlier that morning, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows of the Morgans' Manhattan penthouse. Lisa sat at their breakfast nook, reviewing her flight details to Los Angeles, while Charles finished his coffee. "I could reschedule the board meeting," Charles offered, glancing at his wife over the rim of his cup. The morning light caught the silver in his hair, earned through decades of building their airline empire. "And misannouncing the quarterly results?" Lisa smiled, reaching across to straighten his tie. "I've flown alone before." The city stretched out below them, a testament to how far they'd come. Their daughter's graduation awaited in Los Angeles, another milestone, another reminder of their journey together. Their story began 3 decades ago, when Charles was just a junior executive with big dreams, and Lisa was making waves as an investment banker. Back then, no one believed a small regional airline could compete with the industry giants. No one, except Lisa. She didn't just support Charles's vision, she made it possible. While others dismissed his proposals, Lisa recognized the potential. She leveraged her financial expertise and connections, securing the crucial funding that transformed a struggling airline into an industry leader. Their partnership flourished beyond boardrooms and balance sheets. Every milestone they achieved came with its share of raised eyebrows and whispered doubts. At corporate gatherings, Lisa would often be mistaken for staff rather than the strategic mind behind their success. Security guards would question her presence at executive events despite her role in building the company from ground up. Yet they turned each slight into strength, each challenge into opportunity. Together, they didn't just build an airline. They created a legacy of excellence that challenged industry norms and shattered glass ceilings. "I've been hearing things about the new crew assignments," Charles said, his voice carrying a weight beyond typical business concerns. His fingers drummed against the marble countertop, a rare display of unease from the usually composed CEO. Lisa recognized that look, the same one he wore when she was denied entry to their airline's 10th anniversary gala. "What aren't you telling me?" "Some of the newer flight attendants." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "There have been complaints about their treatment of certain passengers." Lisa understood the unspoken message. Despite their name on the company, despite their success, the shadow of prejudice still lingered in the industry they'd helped transform. "Charles," she touched his hand, stilling his nervous drumming, "I've handled worse. Today, I'm just a mother flying to see her daughter graduate." Sometimes the most powerful people choose to remain silent in the face of discrimination, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal their true identity. But here's what makes this story extraordinary. The events you're about to witness didn't just change one airline. They transformed an entire industry. Tell us in the comments, have you ever been in a situation where someone underestimated you, only to later realize their massive mistake? Because what happens next in this story will show exactly why you should never judge someone by their appearance. The exclusive VIP lounge at LGA International Airport served as a sanctuary for first-class passengers. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over leather seats, while floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the runway. Lisa Morgan sat quietly reviewing emails about her daughter's graduation when Sabrina Wood first noticed her. The flight attendant's eyes narrowed, scanning the lounge as if something was out of place. Her gaze kept returning to Lisa, who occupied a prime seat near the window. "Excuse me," Sabrina approached, clipboard in hand. "This area is reserved for first-class passengers only." Her tone carried a practiced politeness that barely masked her assumptions. Lisa looked up, maintaining perfect composure. "Yes, I'm aware." She reached for her credentials, having performed this dance countless times before. At the reception desk, the attendant confirmed Lisa's status for the second time that morning. "Mrs. Morgan is indeed in first class, Sabrina." But something in Sabrina's expression hardened. She hadn't missed the subtle flash of irritation across Lisa's face, a momentary crack in her composed facade that seemed to fuel Sabrina's determination. "I'll need to verify these documents again," Sabrina announced, her voice carrying across the lounge. She held Lisa's ticket up to the light, examining it as if searching for counterfeiting marks. "We've had issues with fraudulent upgrades recently." Other passengers glanced up from their magazines and laptops. A businessman in the corner lowered his newspaper, watching the scene unfold. "Perhaps you're confused about your seat assignment." Sabrina's voice dripped with false concern. "Economy class is in another terminal. I'd be happy to escort you there." When Lisa calmly pointed out her seat number again, Sabrina's facade cracked further. "It's just that we have certain standards to maintain. Our first-class passengers expect a particular environment." Each word carried a thinly veiled message. Each gesture screamed of prejudice. Sabrina moved closer, deliberately positioning herself to block Lisa's view of the runway. "I'll need to speak with my supervisor about this situation." Sabrina's phone was already in hand, her fingers tapping out a message. "In the meantime, I suggest you wait elsewhere." "I understand you're doing your job," Lisa replied, her voice steady and measured. Years of navigating corporate boardrooms had taught her the power of controlled responses. However, my credentials have been verified multiple times. She maintained direct eye contact with Sabrina, neither challenging nor submitting. A subtle smile played at the corners of her mouth. The same smile she'd worn when investors doubted her analysis 30 years ago. If there's a genuine concern about my documentation, Lisa continued, reaching for her phone, we can certainly escalate this to the appropriate channels. The implied warning in her words was delicate, but clear. A young executive nearby watched in admiration as Lisa handled each confrontation with grace. Her responses were a masterclass in professional poise, each word carefully chosen, each reaction perfectly calibrated. The lounge fell silent as Sabrina returned with 2 security officers. "This passenger is being uncooperative," she declared, her voice carrying authority she didn't actually possess. "She's refusing to provide proper documentation." Lisa's eyes met those of other passengers, witnesses to the unfolding discrimination. Someone had started recording on their phone. "Actually," the lounge receptionist interrupted, stepping forward. "I've already verified." "I'll handle this," Sabrina cut her off sharply. Turning to Lisa, she delivered her final ultimatum. "Either move to the main terminal, or we'll escort you out. If you're as stunned by this blatant discrimination, make sure you're subscribed to Tales of Light for more powerful stories of justice. The confrontation you're about to witness will leave you speechless." The situation escalated from the VIP lounge to Gate A7, where first-class boarding was about to begin. Despite the lounge receptionist's earlier verification and protests, Sabrina had forced Lisa to move to the main terminal area. Now, at the boarding gate, Sabrina spotted Lisa again. Her eyes narrowed with renewed determination, the earlier confrontation having wounded her pride. Other passengers were settling in for pre-boarding when Sabrina marched over. "I thought I made myself clear earlier," she announced, loud enough to draw attention. "Your presence here is suspicious, and I need to verify your documentation again." Lisa silently presented her first-class ticket, the same one already verified multiple times. Her calm demeanor seemed to further agitate Sabrina. "This ends now," Sabrina declared, grabbing the ticket from Lisa's hands. Without hesitation, she began tearing it into pieces, her actions deliberate and dramatic. The sound of ripping paper echoed through the gate area. "People like you," Sabrina emphasized each word while dropping the shredded pieces to the floor, "don't belong in first class. Now you have no ticket at all. Perhaps this will teach you to stay in your proper place." The torn pieces of Lisa's ticket scattered across the carpet, physical evidence of discrimination that would soon trigger an industry-wide reckoning. The gate area erupted in a mix of reactions. A mother covered her children's eyes, shaking her head in disbelief, while a few passengers nodded approvingly at Sabrina's actions, their prejudices quietly aligned with hers. Phones emerged from pockets and purses, recording the scene. A young woman in the front row whispered furiously into her phone, "You won't believe what this flight attendant just did." Behind her, an older couple exchanged knowing smirks, clearly supporting Sabrina's enforcement of standards. The gate agent stood frozen, her hand hovering over the radio. Even the security personnel shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the gravity of what they'd witnessed. An elderly gentleman stood up, his voice shaking with anger. "This is unacceptable. I've never seen such blatant." But his words were cut short by Lisa's raised hand, a subtle gesture that commanded attention without demanding it. Lisa rose from her seat with measured grace, her movements deliberate and controlled. The terminal's fluorescent lights caught the diamond on her hand as she adjusted her posture, the same ring Charles had given her when they secured their first major airline investment. "Miss Wood," she spoke, her voice carrying the weight of 3 decades in corporate leadership, "you've just made the biggest mistake of your life." Each word was precisely enunciated, calm yet resonating with quiet authority. The subtle smile playing on Lisa's lips wasn't one of amusement. It was the same expression she'd worn in countless boardrooms when someone had severely underestimated her position. "I suggest you hold on to that name tag," Lisa continued, her gaze steady. "It will serve as a reminder of this moment when your entire perspective on power and prejudice is about to shift dramatically." Todd Smith, the senior operations manager, burst through the terminal doors, his face ashen. Behind him, several airline executives followed, their expressions a mix of horror and urgency. "Mrs. Morgan," Todd called out, slightly out of breath. "I just received the alert. I am deeply, deeply sorry about this incident." He turned to Sabrina, whose smug expression began to falter. "Do you have any idea who you've been harassing?" The color drained from Sabrina's face as Todd continued. "This is Lisa Morgan. Her husband, Charles Morgan, is our CEO. She's not just a first-class passenger. She's one of the primary architects of this airline's success." Sabrina's hands began to tremble. The same fingers that had torn up the ticket now fidgeted nervously with her name tag. Around them, those passengers who had supported her discrimination moments ago suddenly found the floor very interesting. The terminal fell into complete silence. The only sound was the distant hum of jet engines, a reminder of the empire the Morgans had built. In Chicago, Charles Morgan's phone was about to light up with footage of this incident. Footage that would spark the biggest transformation in aviation history. For Sabrina Wood, time seemed to freeze in this moment, the weight of her actions crashing down as she realized she hadn't just discriminated against a passenger. She'd humiliated the wife of the man who signed her paychecks. Within minutes of the incident, an emergency board meeting was convened in Chicago. Board members rushed from their offices, their phones buzzing with the viral video from Gate A7. The sleek boardroom, usually reserved for quarterly presentations, now filled with tense energy. Charles Morgan had just landed in Chicago when the footage reached him. He stood now at the head of the mahogany table, his quarterly earnings presentation forgotten on the screen behind him. The numbers showing their best performance yet seemed meaningless in light of what had just occurred. "Play it again," Charles instructed, his voice tight with controlled emotion. The CFO tapped his tablet, and Sabrina's voice filled the room. "People like you don't belong in first class." The sound of his wife's ticket being torn echoed through the premium speakers. Around the table, board members watched their CEO's face. Some had been with the airline since the early days, had witnessed the Morgans' struggle against industry prejudices. They'd seen Charles and Lisa transform a struggling airline into an industry leader. The board chairman leaned forward. "Charles, how do you want to handle this?" Charles Morgan's hands gripped the edge of the conference table, his knuckles white against the dark wood. 30 years of corporate composure warred with the raw anger of a husband whose wife had been humiliated. "For 3 decades," he began, his voice low but intense, "Lisa and I have built this airline on principles of respect and equality." He straightened his tie, a gesture Lisa always did for him each morning. The same woman who was just treated like an imposter helped secure the funding that saved this company. The video played again on the wall screen, muted now, but the images spoke volumes. Charles watched as his wife maintained her dignity while being publicly degraded. "This isn't just about Lisa," he continued, pacing the length of the boardroom. "It's about every passenger who's ever faced discrimination on our airlines. Every person who's been judged by their appearance rather than their character." The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They'd never seen their CEO like this. The careful balance between professional leadership and personal outrage, creating an almost electric tension in the room. "Immediate termination," suggested the head of HR, already pulling up the necessary documents on her tablet. We can issue a public statement within the hour. But Charles raised his hand, silencing the quick solutions being offered around the table. His expression shifted from anger to something more purposeful. "No," he declared, surprising everyone. "Firing one flight attendant won't address the systemic problem. This incident isn't just about Sabrina Wood. It's about every silent enabler in that terminal, including those passengers who nodded in approval." The board watched as their CEO transformed this crisis into an opportunity for real change. The same strategic mindset that had built their airline was now focused on something bigger than profits and quarterly reports. "We're going to use this moment," Charles stated, "to transform not just our airline, but the entire industry." "Charles," the board chairman interjected, "the shareholders will want immediate action. The video is already trending. Our stock could take a hit." "Let it trend," Charles replied, his tone resolute, "because what happens next will define our legacy." The boardroom erupted in murmurs. The CFO nervously adjusted his tie while others exchanged concerned glances. They'd backed Charles's vision for 3 decades, but this was different. This wasn't just about business anymore. This was personal, yet could impact their entire corporate future. When faced with discrimination, should justice be swift and harsh, or transformed into an opportunity for education and change? Tell us where you're watching from, and share a moment when you chose growth over revenge. The next part of this story might surprise you. The disciplinary hearing was scheduled for 8 a.m. the following morning. Sabrina Wood sat alone on one side of the conference table, her Navy uniform no longer carrying the confidence it had just 24 hours ago. Across from her, the HR director shuffled through documentation of the incident, including statements from witnesses and viral social media clips that had now reached millions of views. "Ms. Wood," the HR director began, "your actions yesterday violated multiple company policies regarding discrimination, professional conduct, and customer service." She gestured to the stack of papers before her. "We have over 50 witness statements, not to mention the video evidence." Sabrina stared at her hands, the gravity of her actions weighing heavily on her shoulders. The room fell silent as the door opened, and everyone expected to see Charles Morgan enter with termination papers. Instead, Lisa Morgan walked in, carrying a folder of her own. The same woman Sabrina had humiliated now held her career in her hands. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. "Before we proceed," Lisa began, her voice carrying the same composure it had at the gate, "I'd like to share something." She opened her folder, revealing newspaper clippings from the airline's early days. 30 years ago, I was escorted out of our first investors' meeting. The security guard couldn't believe I was there to provide funding, not serve coffee. Lisa placed the articles on the table. I had 2 choices then: demand the guard's termination or create change. Sabrina looked up, meeting Lisa's eyes for the first time. Gone was the condescension from yesterday, replaced by shame and uncertainty. "Many would expect us to terminate you immediately," Lisa continued, causing Sabrina to flinch. "But Charles and I see yesterday's incident differently. We see an opportunity to address something deeper than one person's actions." The HR director leaned forward, intrigued. Lisa Morgan wasn't known for being soft on discrimination. Her reputation for transforming corporate culture preceded her. Yet here she was, offering something different. "Sometimes," Lisa said, her gaze steady, "the best response to discrimination isn't punishment, it's education." Lisa pulled out another document, a comprehensive proposal that would revolutionize airline industry training. "We're establishing the Lisa Morgan Initiative for Inclusive Aviation," she announced, passing copies around the table. "This isn't just sensitivity training," she explained, her finger tracing the outline of an extensive 6-month program. "It's a complete immersion in understanding discrimination from every angle: historical, psychological, and personal." The program would include real-world scenarios, personal narratives from discrimination survivors, and hands-on experience working with diverse communities. Each participant would shadow executives, customer service representatives, and ground staff to understand the impact of prejudice at every level of airline operations. Miss Wood, Lisa turned to Sabrina, whose eyes were fixed on the proposal. You have a choice. You can either accept standard termination, or you can become the first participant in this program. If you complete it successfully, you'll join our new division of inclusive service, helping others learn from your experience. The room fell silent as the magnitude of this opportunity sank in. This wasn't just about saving one person's job. It was about creating a template for industry-wide transformation. The HR director nodded appreciatively at the comprehensive approach, recognizing how this could address systemic issues rather than just individual incidents. Over the following months, Sabrina's journey became a case study in personal and professional transformation. She worked directly with passengers from all backgrounds, listened to their stories, and confronted her own biases head-on. The most powerful moment came when she helped organize a conference where discrimination survivors shared their experiences with airline staff. Standing at the podium, Sabrina publicly acknowledged her past actions and their impact, her voice trembling but determined. Through tears, she addressed a room full of industry professionals. I thought I was protecting standards, but I was perpetuating prejudice. Today, I understand that true excellence comes from inclusion, not exclusion. The Lisa Morgan Initiative quickly expanded beyond their airline, with other carriers requesting to enroll their staff in the program. What began as a response to one incident was becoming a movement for change across the entire aviation industry. 1 year after the incident, the Lisa Morgan Initiative had transformed airline culture across the country. Customer satisfaction scores soared as complaints of discrimination dropped by 78% among participating airlines. The program's success caught the attention of international carriers. What started in one airline's boardroom now had a waiting list of companies eager to enroll their staff. Training sessions were filled with flight attendants, gate agents, and executives all learning to recognize and address their unconscious biases. The initiative's impact extended beyond statistics. Passengers began sharing stories of exceptional service on social media, often highlighting how staff handled sensitive situations with newfound awareness and respect. Videos of positive interactions went viral, creating a ripple effect throughout the industry. Most significantly, the program sparked honest conversations about privilege and power dynamics in aviation. Airlines began actively recruiting diverse candidates for leadership positions, creating mentorship programs, and establishing clear protocols for addressing discrimination. The Morgan's airline became known not just for its service excellence, but as a pioneer in inclusive aviation practices. Sabrina Wood's transformation became the program's most compelling testimony. The flight attendant who once tore up a first-class ticket now led training sessions, using her own story to demonstrate how deeply rooted prejudices could blind someone to their own discrimination. I used to see authority in appearances, she shared during a keynote speech at the International Aviation Conference. Now I understand that dignity isn't worn. It's inherent in every passenger who steps onto our aircraft. Her most powerful moment came 6 months after the incident, when she requested to personally serve the Morgan family on a flight to Los Angeles. Throughout the journey, passengers witnessed a completely different Sabrina, one who treated every customer with the same respect she now showed Lisa. At the end of that flight, Lisa handed Sabrina a note. Your greatest mistake became your most powerful teaching tool. Thank you for having the courage to change. The note now hangs framed in the airline's training center, reminding every new employee that transformation is always possible. The ripple effects reached every corner of the aviation industry. Major airlines began incorporating the Morgan Initiative's principles into their standard training protocols. Airport lounges displayed new signage promoting inclusive spaces, and customer service desks implemented bias awareness procedures. Industry publications that once focused solely on profit margins now regularly featured articles about inclusive aviation practices. The annual Airline Excellence Awards added a new category: Leadership in Inclusive Service. The Morgan's Airline didn't just keep their program internal, they made it open source, allowing other carriers to adapt and implement it. This decision reflected their commitment to industry-wide transformation rather than competitive advantage. Most importantly, passengers reported feeling a tangible difference in their travel experiences. The skies had become more welcoming for everyone, regardless of their appearance or background. This story of transformation reminds us that change is possible, even in the face of deeply rooted prejudices. If you've been moved by this journey of accountability and growth, join our Tales of Light family by hitting that subscribe button and notification bell. Our channel brings you powerful stories of justice, transformation, and human dignity regularly. Thank you for being part of this community that celebrates the triumph of dignity over discrimination.